The punchline is a 6-base DNA sequence describing proteins found in the egg sacs of a red siphonic coral. DNA radio is a general term for various forms of one-way mass communication in societies with languages relying on chemical information transfer. There are a number of variations of the practice depending on the species, individual chemical cycles, and environment, but all share the common feature of being a branching or broadcast style of chemical information transmission. Some advanced technological civilizations have developed DNA radio into a sophisticated medium for art and social discourse. The Anurag people are vaguely amphibian-like and evolved to communicate by exchanging a form of saliva encoded with subtle but highly complex variations in acidity. One long lick may exchange the information and emotional equivalent of a 3-page letter, a drawing, and a pressed flower. In effect, they communicate by creating and sensing specific tastes while kind of making out with each other. Their technology is largely biologically based, and their implementation of DNA radio is entirely organic. An Anurag DJ licks into a device that functions as a microphone but is a genetically engineered sponge colony that converts their saliva's acidity into a serialized stream of chemical data. The data is encoded in the same chemical sequences of base pairs that the Anurag's biological equivalent of DNA. The DNA is conveyed by fluid or aerosol to a similar receiver sponge that then converts the DNA back to a tasteable acidic pattern that can be understood by any Anurag. There is a small loss of subtle tone and intent in the conversion to DNA radio, but the fidelity to their natural communication is more than adequate. Since the Anurag DNA radio chemical format shares elements with DNA of their planetary ecosystem, it didn't take long before they started experimenting with and including natural DNA elements in the DNA radio feeds, much like a human DJ might sample sounds from nature. Red siphonic coral creates stunningly beautiful structures, and its eggs have cultural significance, and preserved eggs are highly valued in some older traditions. Most modern cultures prioritize protecting the coral and consider decorative egg harvesting a sadly backwards relic. Though it is tolerated in moderation, the practice is a regular subject of ridicule in the media. A popular DNA radio children's program popularized a villainous character who desperately sought preserved coral eggs. The villain's entrance was always accompanied, much like a theme song, with a DNA sequence, a theme DNA sequence, which was borrowed verbatim from the DNA found in the red siphonic coral eggs. This children's program helped turn cultural values even further against coral egg harvesting, but even long after the program was considered outdated, references to the egg-loving villain remained in the cultural memory. The human analogy might be the end theme of a Looney Tunes episode, but for someone with synesthesia who hears it as a smell, and that smell also smells a little bit like roasting Porky Pig. The punchline is a human with a black hole alien pet named Spray-Painted Grapefruit, the Devourer of Paint. Though the punchline is a human, it's not an offensive thing because the human it's about considered himself a member of the alien society he's a joke in, and he didn't mind being the source of amusement and even enjoyed, the notoriety to some degree. But since he considers himself an alien and other aliens laugh at it, it's an alien joke. So, black hole aliens have absolutely nothing to do with black holes. They just don't reflect any light because their fur is like that carbon nano Vanta black stuff. But from it covers frequencies from radio to X-rays. They are humanoid bipeds, but if you saw one even in broad daylight, you'd just see a cavity black silhouette. They call themselves black hole people because they do strongly identify with celestial black holes. It's a kind of a sun worship thing combined with a weird narcissism because they say that black holes are big versions of them, but it is kind of cute and it's not a big deal in modern black hole alien society. Black hole aliens are curious researchers, and they have a strong advantage in doing things they don't want advertised to other species. So they've become one of the galaxy's most prolific abductors and probers. The stereotype of a big headed green alien is totally unfair. Those guys barely abduct anyone. And though the black hole aliens were actually quite gentle and generally humane, the fact that they appeared as two-dimensional shadow beings is enough to invoke primal fear in pretty much any species that has any kind of vision sense. Though the black hole aliens had abducted many, many humans, they were totally unprepared to meet young Franklin Weiss. He was accidentally abducted when they scooped up an entire RV to save some time. He was brought back all the way to the black hole alien home world before he was discovered. His actual age is unknown, but he was less than a meter tall and extremely rambunctious, but had a generally pleasant disposition. It's unclear what Franklin's deal was. He might have been a little simple, or maybe really smart, but unlike pretty much every other being they abducted, he demonstrated unprecedented contentment with his circumstances. Once he was provided basic sustenance, he was astonishingly chill. He was not afraid of the black hole aliens and interacted with them freely and delighted in making shadow puppets with them, which he and a few of his handlers developed into a fairly sophisticated language, since Franklin could not understand the tactile language used by black hole aliens. By the time he reached adulthood, he was considered essentially a black hole alien, but with a disability that he could only communicate in a made-up language and everybody could see him. Franklin was given a pet companion, a smallish black hole fur animal, not unlike a dog. Franklin named his pet after the most significant celestial object in black hole alien culture, a particularly gigantic black hole. The culturally significant black hole was called Dark Sphere Drinks Light in the highly literal black hole alien language. But since Franklin's handlers had to limit base conceptual vocabulary of a juvenile human to work with, their direct translation to human concept somehow became spray-painted grapefruit, the devourer of paint. The error was only discovered much later after Franklin began participating in abductions of other humans. Upon learning more human words and the correct associations, he was able to piece together the chain of misunderstandings that led to his well-meaning but misinformed black hole handlers teaching him their revered celestial object was a spray-painted grapefruit. So I guess that's not really even a joke, it's just a humorous circumstances, but I started this whole alien joke thing with a punchline first format, so apparently I'm sticking to that even when it doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, I forgot to number these jokes. I don't know. I did it at first, but I'm not sure why. So I'm just not numbering these. It was really only funny for 7, and I don't think you can do that twice, so I think this is fine.